In New York, a young Marine vanished from his military base during service officials took no responsibilities. He had disappeared while off-duty and closing the case, but 8 years later, when workers began renovating the old military housing, they discovered something shocking inside the very room where the Marine had lived, a hidden clue in the air conditioning unit that would expose the dark truth about what really happened. To him at the camp, the fluorescent lights of Westfield General Hospital's emergency room flickered as Sarah Dalton peeled off her latex gloves for the last time that day. 10 hours on her feet, 3 cardiac arrests, 1 motorcycle accident, and countless minor injuries later. She was finally done at 47. She'd been doing this long enough to know when her body had reached its limit, and today was one of those dazed. October air hit her face as she pushed through the hospital's automatic doors at 5 o'clock p.m. Sharp New Jersey autumns had a particular chill that cut through even the thickest scrubs. Sarah fumbled for her phone as she walked across the parking lot, her white nursing shoes making soft sounds against the asphalt. The screen lit up with several missed calls, all from the same number, Detective Luis Moreno. 3 calls in the last 30 minutes. Her heart skipped. In the 8 years since Evan had vanished, Detective Moreno had never called her multiple times in a row. Something had changed. Sarah's fingers trembled slightly as she unlocked her Honda Civic and slid into the driver's seat before hitting the callback button. The phone rang twice. Detective Moreno. Detective, it's Sarah Dalton. So sorry I missed your calls. I was in the middle of my shift, just got out. Now is everything okay? I saw you called several times. There was a pause on the other end. Mrs. Dalton, no need to apologize if figured you were working. I tried reaching you about 30 minutes ago. His voice carried that careful tone law enforcement used when delivering significant news. It's not an emergency per se, but we found something important. I need to show you something that could be a new lead connected to your disappearance. Sarah gripped the steering wheel with her free hand. What is it? What did you find? I can't discuss it over the phone, Mrs. Dalton. It's more personal, but we need you to come to the old Marine camp where Evan was stationed, Camp Buckner near Highland Falls. Yes, that's the one. I know it's a 2-hour drive and it's getting late. Would you like an escort? Sarah glanced at the darkening sky. The exhaustion from her shift weighed on her, but this was about Evan. There was no question that would be great. Actually, it's been a long day, Officer Vansberg and I can pick you up at your house in 15 minutes. I'll be ready. The drive home was a blur. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities as she navigated the familiar streets of Westfield. What could they have found after all this time? The Marine Corps had been less than helpful 8 years ago, insisting that since Evan had disappeared during his liberty time, his off-duty hours, it wasn't their responsibility. They'd done the bare minimum investigation before washing their hands of it. Sarah barely changing out of her scrubs and into jeans and a sweater. She grabbed her purse, made sure she had her phone charger, and was waiting by the front window when the unmarked police car pulled up. Detective Moreno stepped out, still the same stocky build and graying temples, though the lines around his eyes had deepened. His partner, Officer Hans Vansberg, remained in the driver's seat. Mrs. Dalton, Moreno said gently. Locked her front door. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Of course, Sarah replied, settling into the back seat. You said you found something? We'll explain everything when we get there, Moreno said, exchanging a glance with Vansberg in the rearview mirror. The 2-hour drive felt eternal. They made small talk about the weather, about Sarah's work at the hospital, anything but the elephant in the car. Sarah watched the urban sprawl off New Jersey give way to the more rural landscape of the Hudson Valley, the trees painted in October oranges and reds. During daylight now appeared as dark silhouettes against the eveningsky. When they finally arrived at Camp Buckner, the wind had picked up considerably. The surrounding forest swayed and creaked, creating an almost otherworldly atmosphere. The camp looked exactly as Sarah remembered from her few visits 8 years ago. Imposing brick barrack chain link fences and that particular military orderliness that made everything feel both permanent and temporary at once. A young Marine was waiting for them at the main entrance. Corporal Avery James, ma'am, he said, offering a crisp salute to the detectives. I'll be escorting you to Fabrics. They followed him across the compound, their footsteps echoing on the concrete pathways. The corporal led them into one of the larger buildings, up a flight of stairs and down a long corridor that smelled of floor wax and industrial cleaner. Sarah noticed how quiet it was. Most of the Marines must have been at dinner or evening activities. This is it, Corporal James said, stopping at a door marked Unit 1-2B. He produced a key and unlocked it. This unit belonged to Private Dalton and his team for Mento, a room. Standard arrangement. Sarah stepped inside, her eyes immediately taking in the sparse furnishings for beds with military-tight corners, 4 lockers, a shared desk, and a window, with her gaze fixed on the air conditioning unit mounted in the window. It was an older model, the kind with manual controls and wide vents. Samiana had placed evidence markers around it, ma'am, Corporal James began, his tone becoming more formal. We're currently renovating several rooms in this section of the barracks. When the workers remove this air conditioning unit to replace it, they found something hidden inside. Detective Moreno stepped forward. Mrs. Dalton. What they found were magazines, adult magazines. Sarah's brow furrowed. I don't understand. What does this have to do with? Evan the corporal cleared his throat uncomfortably. They were gay adult magazines, ma'am, and we found some personal items alongside them that clearly belonged to your son. That's impossible, Sarah said quickly. Evan wasn't gay, he had female friends in high school. Mrs. Dalton, Detective Moreno interrupted gently. They found Evan's cross pendant, the one you described in your missing persons report, and a pen with his name engraved on it. The items were wrapped with the magazines. Sarah felt her legs weakened, slightly, moved to sit on the nearest bed. Evan's bed, she realized, noting its position directly beside the air conditioning unit. Can I see them? She asked quietly. Are you sure? Moreno asked. Yes, I need to see them. Vansberg produced an evidence bag containing several magazines. Sarah took them. With trembling hands, aware of the uncomfortable silence that had descended on the room, she flipped through the pages, trying to maintain her composure as a medical professional, even as her maternal heart raced. Then she saw handwriting in the margins of several pages, little drawings and notes. She knew thought handwriting as well as her own, had seen it on countless school papers, birthday cards, letters, home. This is Evan's writing. She whispered. The evidence was undeniable. The pendant, the pen, the handwriting, and the location hidden in the vent right beside his bed where his roommates wouldn't find them. Sarah closed her eyes, pieces of a puzzle she'd never wanted to complete, suddenly falling into place the way Evan had always had more female friends than male ones. How he'd never seemed interested when she'd tried to talk to him about a serious relationship with girl, but also the way he'd insisted, almost too forcefully, that he was attracted to women whenever she gently probed. He lied to me, she said softly. All those times I asked him, he said he wasn't gay. As a nurse, Sarah had worked with people from all walks of life. She'd thought of herself as accepting, progressive even, but faced with this evidence about her own son, she felt a complex mix of emotions, surprise, sadness that he'd felt he couldn't tell her, and a strange sense of clarity. The door opened and a man in a crisp uniform with captain's insignia entered. I apologize for being late, he said, extending his hand to Sarah. Captain Charles Vale. I was Evan's commanding officer 8 years ago, Captain. Vale was perhaps 45, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of rigid posture that came from decades of military service. His handshake was firm, his expression appropriately somber. Mrs. Dalton, I want to express how sorry I am about what happened to your son. The Corps did everything we could within our jurisdiction, but since he left during Liberty, he trailed off the However, with this new discovery, we're hoping it might provide new leads for the investigation officer. Vansberg stepped forward. We'll need to bag this evidence, and we'd like to rein Evan's roommates if possible. We spoke with them 8 years ago. But in light of this new information, we should also interview other Marines who were close to Evan. Detective Moreno added, looking at Captain Vale, anyone who might have known about this aspect of his life. The captain and corporal exchanged glances. Outside, thunder rumbled ominously. Gentlemen, I'm afraid that might have to wait until morning, Captain Vale said, and also, we're expecting severe weather to move through Hudson Valley tonight. The roads become treacherous, and we often have closures. It would be safer for everyone. Knife. You stayed here at the barracks overnight. Lightning flashed through the window as if to emphasize his point. Wecken, arrange the interviews tomorrow morning during the 1,000 hours break, the captain continued. Mrs. Dalton, we have a guest quarters in the female section on the 3rd floor, private room with its own bathroom. You'll be comfortable there. Sora looked to Detective Moreno, who nodded. Probably for the best. Mrs. Dalton can start fresh in the morning. There's a canteen where you can get dinner, Corporal James added.